But before we get into that, let's talk about business first. What's up, guys? This is Johnny. This is our end of the week parlay, setting us up for the weekend ahead of all the fights. And I already posted my 9-leg moneyline parlay, but we could get into that. You guys have any questions about that? I posted that on the channel. There's a couple underdogs that I've picked, obviously a couple big favorites. And then also we could go over the method of victory. I'm going to let the live stream sizzle here a bit, and then we could get into business. Say our hellos to the boys. What's up, DJ? Good, man. Good. I'm going to do a little bit of a longer one this afternoon. This morning I had to kind of rush because I had some training to do, but it is Friday, 11:30 a.m., and I'm already done for the day with hands-on work. What's up, new sub here? My dad told me. Nice, Skeezy. What's up? Perth in the house. Excellent. I like how like 60% of my channel is from America, but I've been in Sydney. I've been in Australia since 2013, but I am American. It's good to have Perth here. I've had a couple Perth fighters on my channel. Jackson John England, I know he calls Perth home. I've interviewed him a few times. I call him a friend, so he's a nice little fighter out of Australia. But welcome. Mike, how do you feel about Erislandy Alvarez that's fighting tomorrow? Why do these Cubans have so many amateur fights? Mike Ross, and it's not just boxing when we're talking about Cuba. Cuba is one of these countries that prides themselves on their amateur Olympic athletic training programs. So you could say all you want. I'm sure you've done your research, Mike, on the type of government that Cuba has. And so when you look at what they do from a very young age with the boys, it's part of their culture. I'm talking from like 6 years old onwards. And they have these sort of like, maybe you could call them events, but they place the little boys in certain sports. That's a boxer, that's a wrestler, that's a boxer, that sort of thing. And then they sort of, you know, for the lack of better adjectives, I don't want to say groom, but they kind of, you know, build the little kid up to become a Cuban Olympian. Because the one thing on the world stage is an Olympic gold medal in any sport says a lot about your country. And certain countries, and I'm speaking from an American, when I got to Australia in 2013, I was shocked at how patriotic Aussies are regarding the Olympics. I'm talking all the sports. I come down here, and during the Olympics, everyone's asking, who do you like in track and field? Who's going to win swimming? Who's going to win this event? And I'm like, man, I come from a place, at least where I come from in America, we care about professional sports. So, like, I grew up in Northeast Ohio. So, like, the pros, you know, Olympians are amateurs. So, it's one thing I learned living in Australia. Globally, a lot of countries take their amateur Olympic athletes very seriously, and Cuba's one of them. And so you see, look at Lomachenko, what he did for the Ukraine. Look what he did for Ukraine, and a lot of the Ukraine boxers. They would much rather you win a gold medal for your country like Cuba, you're set for life. And so a lot of them will stay every 4 years and just kind of add all these fights. That's my best answer to you, Mike. What's up, GOAT? What's up, guys? You know, we're starting off good. Like this video. I'm gonna do a long one today. Yeah, so let's talk about some of these fights. I missed a couple questions, guys, and I'm doing my best over the last week to keep it segmented with specific questions, and then as the live stream heats up, we could get a little bit more ranty, because lately you guys have been asking me about UFC, MMA, because I also cover that, and I've had friends fight in the UFC. My old roommate's a UFC fighter. I've been covering MMA fights since documenting them since 2013, but I've watched literally every UFC fight since '93, since it started. You know, I'm an old head, so I come from the era of watching even Pride FC. I was a Pride kid too, so watching, you know, Kazushi Sakuraba versus Vanderlei Silva in the glory days where you were allowed to just kick dudes in the head on the ground. So MMA is still kind of my wheelhouse too. It's just on this channel, I focus on boxing. And on that note, and we will get to Boots Ennis. Jaron Ennis has left 147. Jaron Ennis, my boy fights, landslide, my boy's Dalton Rosta. So Dalton Rosta, he fights in the 185-pound division. He's from where I'm from. What's up, landslide? Mike Ross, 54. So Boots left 47, vacated the IBF. He's at 54 now. I'm currently watching his coach, one of his coaches, Greg Hackett, talk about it. Now, I'm not friends with Joe Rogan, but Daniel, I did grow up with Tony Hinchcliffe, which is an odd, like, every time Tony comes to Sydney and does his comedy store here, every now and then he'll stay with me. So Tony and I have been friends since I was 12 and he was 11. He was on my baseball team, so I was the older kid. He was a young buck. So I've watched Tony turned from just a little stand-up comic to becoming Joe Rogan's right-hand man. But anyway, yeah, Atama and White is announced. Let's get to business first with the parlay. I'm going to leave the live on for a long time today. We could get to a lot of this. You guys asked me, guys, I'm not getting odds on the Mexico card. Are you guys getting the Juan Francisco Estrada card? Because, I can't even bet on it. So I'm just going to do away with it. I wanted to bet on El Gallo. I wanted to, bet on Juan Francisco Estrada. But I'm just going to bypass the Mexico card. And we're going to go to, well, you brought up Brandon Glanton, Mike. Let's go to Ghana first. Guys, so if you're catching this live, we're going to talk about the Ghanaian, the card in Ghana promoted by Amir Khan. And, historically, Ghana is known. There's a great documentary on YouTube. It came out probably 5 years ago about the history of Ghana boxers. It's amazing. Richard Comey, Josh Cloddy, Azuma Nelson. So the little area landmass of Ghana produces just out of nowhere great world-class boxers, and they have a specific style. So when you hear guys fighting from Ghana, think Comey, David Cote, Ike Cordy. So some of my favorite boxers, Isaac Dogbo. But that card is in Ghana, and so I want to talk a little bit about who I like on that card. The odds aren't great, and I threw a handful of those fighters on that card on my parlay, but the odds aren't great. I'm hoping in a perfect world that my sports book will let me bet on method of victory, because Mike Woods, you brought up Brandon Glanton. Exactly. But Glanton, by knockout, if you could get juice on it, Glanton's knocking this dude out. John Napari is a regional African guy in the division. Glanton is going to go down. Glanton is being brought in to showcase. Yeah, zoom in. Buckley beats Usman. I'll detour there in a second. So, a close to 50-50 fight. Daniel Gorsch versus Alate. Let me put a take-home point on Gorsch versus Alate. If you guys are tuning in live, go to your sports book right now. Gorsch versus Alate. Mac, we're aligned right here. So I'm going to my sports book. We're going to talk about this fight. I didn't have time to do my edited breakdown video, but here it is. I'm going to give you my best breakdown live on the live stream. I've done my film study. Gorsch versus Alate. When you look at this fight head-to-head, this is a fight that's taking place at 122 pounds. The odds are where it gets exciting. Right now, Daniel Gorsch is a slight favorite. $100 on Gorsch on the money line gets you $77 in return. 100 on Alate gets you your money back plus $118. So when I'm doing my film study, I'm doing the breakdown. You could, neither guy at this stage of the game, they're young guys. Neither guy is going to be world class. Neither guy is fighting for a world title. But something that you have to mention when you're looking at the odds is that Alate is coming up traditionally fighting at 115 pounds. 5'3", 115 pounds. Has pop at 115 pounds. But we know segmented, when you go from 115, even to 118, to 122, to 126, we've seen historically, power doesn't necessarily carry and translate. So Alate's at 115. You have Gorsch, who fought his last fight at 125. He weighed in at like 126, and he's ranked at 122 pounds. So the fight is taking place at 122 pounds. This is important and significant because Gorsch has power, right? And Gorsch, the kid with power, is fighting in his natural weight class, fighting against a younger dude, similar age, 25 and 23, coming up from 15. Now, in my reasoning, you could look at them technically. On paper, it says Gorsch is similar 5'4". And I got Alate at 5'3". And so the height kind of cancels each other out. And, well, I couldn't imagine being a grown man and being 5'3". Goat. We can't handle our genetic. The one thing we don't control is our genetics. I think a lot of fight fans would be kind of shocked if you ever meet your favorite boxer in person. You'd be shocked. A lot of people would be shocked with how tiny, because, not everyone's a big dude, and some of the best fighters are the most reflex, most kind of quickest fighters. They're smaller guys. Anyway, Alate is 5'3". Gorsch is listed as 5'4". The reaches kind of cancel each other out. They both have power. Gorsch is a bigger dude. Bringing up a guy, I was shocked that he took the fight. Bringing up a guy from 115 pounds. And it shows you how big of a dog Alate must be. Alate signed on the dotted line. The odds, like I said, are close to 50-50. I'm taking Daniel Gorsch. Exactly. So we can move on with, but that if you guys catch this or have any more questions, just revisit the video. This is why I'm taking my reasoning falls in line with the weight classes, with the size and the power. The height and reach cancel each other out, and both guys are going to be there to get hit. It's going to be a fun fight. Yeah, Glanton stopping his opponent. David Eister. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I saw that you messaged in our on our post section, and you asked me about his opponent. His opponent is being fed to Glanton to get stopped. When you look at his opponent's footage and how he fights, Glanton is a guy, like I said, he just fought CBS. Just what, 2 months ago? He fought Chris Billum-Smith. You know, had his moments, but Billum-Smith showed his seasoning. Chris Billum-Smith is world-class, champion level, and Glanton had one game plan. Break him down. He thought he was going to knock Chris Billum-Smith out. Didn't happen. And Glanton is a good fighter. I like Brandon Glanton. He's marketable. He's mean in there. I like his style. I think he's going to be too much. Right now, I don't have the odds, but I threw Glanton on my money line. So we got... And I posted this. So I'll go over this. And if you have questions, Abdul Khan, $1.03. That's a feeder fight. Brandon Glanton, he's going to be way too much. Daniel Gorsch at $1.77. Andrew Tabiti at $1.07. Michael Soro at $1.09. You should recognize those names. Soro and Tabiti. And then it moves us to Argentina. Rodriguez upsets you 5. What do you think? Yeah, I see that fight coming up. It's been on my radar, 79, and a lot of people have been asking me about it. For me to give a educated opinion on who wins that fight, I can't do it right now. I'm hyper-focused on the fights in front of us. Najee Lopez fought a guy who left his chin wide open for an uppercut and got starched, 50% knockout ratio, bum. Does Raleigh get elevated? So Gold member, does Raleigh get elevated? Are you referring to what happened at 47 with Boots? Because if anything, wouldn't it be his mandatory is Lewis Crocker? It's an IBF strap. If that's what we're talking about the 47 division. And guys, 147 was already light. 147 was thin. And the haters, Boots haters are going to say, Marcus Escudero, Boots haters are going to say, yeah, Devin Haney's moving to 47, Ryan's moving to 47, Raleigh's moving to 47, Teofimo Lopez is moving to 47, but they're not at 47. Boots is bigger than all those guys. When you look at what 47 is versus the potential fights at 54, I mean, rumor is that they're about to announce Bakram Mura-zyl versus Erickson Lubin. So that's a really fun fight if that goes down. And you know Erickson Lubin will fight anybody. So we've been asking all this time, when are we going to get a Bakram Mura-zyl announcement? This is from Greg Hackett's mouth. So Greg Hackett is saying that it's basically agreed upon. Yeah, so I don't know if Raleigh's going to get elevated. I just found out about this breaking news about 10 minutes ago. But 154 was already stacked with a lot of fun fighters. And I think to finish 147 before we go to 54, Rohan Polanco is one of my favorite guys at 47. I think that guy, I think he's world champion level status. I think he will be a world champion one day. And this is why when we talk about what's happening in that division, it leaves room for a star. You know, I know Hitchens and George are fighting at 40, but same thing with 40. If Hitchens goes out and has a career-defining performance, performances like that in divisions that aren't super stacked could elevate a guy's status to becoming a star and breaking through. And I'm expecting that from Hitchens, by the way. 145 is my favorite division at the moment. I mean, think about 145, and I'm just going to go by the algorithm. You know, I got BoxRec algorithm. We know who the champion. Bud Crawford, Mura-zyl, Virgil, Xander, Keith Thurman, Majimov, Boacek, Fundora, Lubin, Tim Tszyu, Jesus Ramos, Charles Conwell, Chino Perez, who's fighting Xander Zayas next, Bakary Samake, nobody talks about, Connor Ben, Yenis Tellez, nobody talks about, Joshua Kelly, my guy, I'm a big PBK fan. Callum Walsh, I mean, say what you want about him. Isaac Lucero, Katsarakis, nobody talks about. Brandon Adams, what happened to Brandon Adams? And then there's from 1 to 25. You got names that are fun matchups. Deep division full of underperforming guys. I just want to see people getting active. You know what I'm saying? To quote and then when you go to the back end of the rankings, yeah, the back end isn't as heavy, but what other division 1 through 25 could the average boxing head know who we're talking about? What do you say about Brandon Pizarro 2-1? Yeah, I'm staying away from that Pizarro fight, Christian. Watching what I've seen on both guys. If I take the Pizarro fight, I'll tell you, I'm not putting it on a parlay. Yeah, Raleigh's W interim, who either get elevated or have to fight Giasov for the belt, which is a fun fight. We've covered Giasov on the channel multiple times. Do you think Joe or Lubin has a better chance? What did I miss, 79? Are you talking about Mura-zyl? But it's interesting to think about. You'd have to think Boots. Yeah, Tellez. No one talks about him. Tellez is. You'd have to think that Boots going to 54, he already has something offered. And Hackett really didn't say what or say who. But you'd have to think for him to vacate, he has something offered. Maybe Boachuk? Or does Boots go right into a title of 54? I'm not high on 54 like a lot of people are, even though it's a fun... Okay, personally, David, then what division do you like? Does Jalil or Lubin have a better chance against Mura-zyl? Sammy's W interim. I know we're not talking about... Are you talking... I don't want to put words in your mouth, but hopefully I didn't read with the fighter I think you mentioned against Mura-zyl. I don't think many fighters have a chance against Mura-zyl. I think Mura-zyl is a nightmare, especially if you have a Bakr Mura-zyl who's not doing a camp during Ramadan. Because we saw what he looks like during Ramadan. He still won, but he got hit a lot. And then we saw what he looked like when he didn't fight when he was fasting, and that was against Zhu. I just want to see him. You want to see him stay active. I mean, what's Keith Thurman going to do? Boachuk or Boots, but it could be a stinker like Karen. I didn't mind the second Chukichin fight, actually. Way better than Hackett. Yeah, I didn't even answer that, Zach. I was like, I know you're not talking about Jalil Hackett. I mean, I didn't want to answer, and I don't want to offend anybody. But I was reading Jalil Hackett, I'm like, what are you, for real? Maybe you see something I don't see. We're talking about Mura-zyl? I don't know. Maybe, yeah. I'll leave it at that. I think Bachram is a real boogeyman. De La Hoya admitted he told Virgil not to fight him. Just in terms of, you have to make business decisions with styles. And Virgil's style is, I'd love to see it. Mr. P, I posted it. I posted my parlay, the 9-legger. It's already on the channel. You can have a look. It pays about 8-1. Guys, you have to remember, in Australia, my book forces us to do three-way parlays. He beats Virgil by another fight, Mura-zyl. Yeah, to say that Mura-zyl beats Virgil, I don't know. Virgil could crack. Virgil, I know he's, he gets knocked down, gets up. His style is really fun to watch. It's tough for me that style, Mura-zyl versus Virgil. I think Virgil is a little bit more classier than people give him credit for in terms of, we'll see. I need to see more Mura-zyl too. Because 2 rounds against Tim Tszyu coming straight on one line without moving your head, it's a tough look. And then Mura-zyl in his last fight actually didn't look that great. If we go before the Tim Tszyu fight. You know what I mean? So, I know Mura-zyl is the boogeyman. 23-0, 17 knockouts. But when you watch the Jack Colque fight, Colque knocked him out in the 11th. He got hit a lot against Colque, the Robert Valenzuela Jr., which is wild. Was an 8-rounder. His resume isn't filled with guys who jump off the page. He hasn't been that active since 2022. He's fought twice in 4 years. You know what I'm saying? So even though Mura-zyl's record is legit, and we saw what Mura-zyl did to Tszyu, I don't want to say I'm not sold on Bakr Mura-zyl, but to say that he would beat Virgil, I don't know if I agree with you. I've seen Virgil come up, gradually find 154, which it looks like it's his more natural weight class. Solid, we've seen him overcome adversity. That performance against Madrimov, I mean, back-to-back, going from Boacek to Madrimov, Virgil Ortiz is battle-tested. He's the real deal, man. You know what? If you had asked me right now, I would take Virgil over Mura-zyl. I would, and I'm not even trying to. That probably is controversial to some of you guys, and he's one of my favorite fighters, and I picked Madrimov to beat him. I actually bet against Virgil, who's one of my favorite fight styles, because I thought Madrimov, in that version of Madrimov wasn't, he didn't look the same that he looked against Bud. So it's interesting. Yeah, Israel looked different when you watch the Bud fight than he did against Virgil. And I don't like doing boxing matches, but even his game plan was different against Virgil. Yeah, Virgil Ortiz, man. I don't get when people... There's certain fighters who really encapsulate what boxing, the spirit of being a fighter, is all about. And Virgil's one of them. And when people hate on him, I don't understand. Big time Charles Conwell after getting called out by him. And I'm still, I want Charles to get another big fight. He kind of showed his flaws against Chino. So, watching how one-dimensional Conwell was with his offensive arsenal, not being able to make adjustments against Chino, I was kind of let down a bit because we know Conwell's stellar amateur career, his stellar pro career. We know how dangerous he is. But it was almost like, when somebody falls in love, it's like a pitcher who falls in love with their fastball, even though they start getting clipped a lot, or a knockout artist falling in love with one punch. They don't have a backup plan. Conwell didn't have any levels to his game against Chino. And maybe that was us underrating Chino, because Chino is a veteran, and his fight IQ in that fight, won him that fight. Why is Virgil not having motion after 2 good wins? I think that if I'm Virgil Ortiz, my next fight's a world title fight, right? That's a good one. Conwell trouble with Abreu. Yeah, LaManna knocked out. Good point, Crazy. Good point. And and like I said, if you guys follow Ohio Runs Boxing on Instagram, and he loves Conwell, but he was straight up with me. He told me how it is. He was like, look, Conwell struggles with layers at this moment. He was like, he needs to add different layers to his game. And I just kind of got, I think, enamored by the record and what he looked like when he was at his best. Because sometimes when I break down fights, one of the gauges I do, if it's a close fight, is like, all right, what does this guy look like at their best? This is if both fighters are in their prime. Not like Nonito Donaire versus Andres Campos, because this logic doesn't work there. But normally, if both guys are in their prime, my logic would be, what does this guy look like at their best? Have we seen it? What does this guy look like at their worst? Have we seen it? And then I'll compare and contrast both guys. And so I was, Conwell at his best. I felt like we hadn't, the version of him against Chino, I had never seen him not be able to pull the trigger or make an adjustment, even though Chino fought him on the ropes the entire time too. And that was a brilliant game plan, staying there and forcing Conwell to make the adjustment. But all Conwell did was keep his head on Chino's left side, and he couldn't hit him. And he's just doing a lot of that. And yeah, Chino impressed me. I became a fan that night of Chino. And I think he's going to give Xander Zayas more problems than people realize. Because the one thing that Chino has over Xander is experience. And Xander's still young, 22 years old, big for the division. Xander cuts a lot of weight. I think Xander's probably going to end up 160. I don't think Xander stays at 54 too long. Yeah, I'm Next Gen Combat. To answer your question, we got that fight next week, Brian Norman Jr. against Sasaki. I haven't posted it yet. I've done my video. I'm going to upload that after the fights on Sunday, my Sunday. I think Norman stops Sasaki. I think Norman, only because Sasaki, he's not really a well-polished, world-class fighter. He has good crack. He's up for it. He has a puncher's chance. He could win the fight. But when I take all of those attributes that Sasaki has, I just like what Brian Norman has more, and I like how Brian Norman goes about his business more. And I'm high on Brian Norman Jr. I think he's the real deal, and he's young. What do you think about Clapback Thursdays coming back? I watched it. Did you watch it? Did you watch what Oscar had to say? I was watching it right before I went live. Oscar spent 6 minutes talking about the TKO promotion, Dana White not being a promoter, the UFC being in debt. There were some things I agreed with Oscar on. and obviously, like everything, if we're well thought out, grown up adults, there's things I disagreed with him upon. He talked about how fighting on September 13th, how the fight's happening during the day and the UFC's fighting at night. Not showing the respect. I kind of agreed with him there, but I'll leave it at that. Guys, we could talk about that at another time. Any questions on the parlay, guys? Yafai winning. What's the reasons? 79 in the house. Yeah. Fernandez. Okay, let me get to that. Somebody asked me who you got and why aren't you putting it on your parlay. Fernandez versus Ricardo Nunes. To answer you, Ola, is that if I don't know fighters and if I haven't done my due diligence on film studying, guys, and I see a fight that I'm kind of iffy on, I just don't bet on it. So I'm not one of the, even though, you've seen, even though you guys have seen me put up a 22-leg parlay, 15-leg parlay, that doesn't mean I pick every fight. There's fights that, like, I'm not betting on Ohari Davies. There's certain fighters I won't bet on. Kazuki, yeah. Kazuki is on my, I'm waiting to see if I could get a method of victory on Kazuki. But you're talking about Nakajima versus Oshima. Let me answer your question, though, about Fernandez. Fernandez versus Nunes. C-level fight. That's on the... Okay, that's on in Spain. I'm not even getting these odds. That's crazy. So I guess there's a Spanish card this weekend. Are you guys getting that on your betting apps? Antonio, what's up? Are you guys getting because somebody just asked me about John Fernandez versus Ricardo Nunes. It's for the WBC International Silver. And guys, we know that the WBC Silver in any division, whenever you win that fight, hopefully you fight for a title next. Fernandez 26-3, fighting Nunes 26-6. Fernandez is showing that he's the favorite, but I don't know if I agree with that. Fernandez hasn't fought in a year. He's coming off a UD. Ricardo Nunes, I thought we just saw him fight. Didn't we see Nunes is coming off of that UD? Yeah, we just watched Nunes fight in Panama. Yeah, I'm staying away from that fight, guys. I'm staying away. Is high in the WBC top 5, I think. I know, and he's the underdog. I don't want to get one guy I never heard you. Janabek Alahanale. David, I always talk about, you must just be new to the channel. I featured every time Alahanale fights, I feature him. I break his tape down. He's one of my favorite fighters. You got to remember, he just came down to Australia in the last 6 months. I saw him fight live. He starched this fighter out of Bondi Boxing. So I'm big on Janabek Alahanale. It's funny to hear people mispronounce his name. Alam Kunale. It's Alam Hunale. Skeezy, Bet365. I use sports bet. Lower odds, no draw. I didn't know this. So is Bet365 no draws? No Diddy. I'm going to put that in my notes. No draws, no Diddy. I'm a comic now. McGrill, Bet365. I'll check it out, McKeezy. Yeah, because sports bet down here, they force you to do the 3-way, and the draw kills you. But to put a book note on the fight card in Spain, even though Fernandez is the favorite, I like Nunes in that fight, actually. How's he ranked in that division? I don't know. I mean, what are his biggest wins? Corrales, Vicente? Yeah, he lost 3 in a row. Every time he kind of stepped up. Yeah, Rikishi knocked him out. So, and we just watched Rikishi fight. So maybe not. Yeah, I'm not betting that fight. Don't hold me to that fight. I didn't study it. Rikishi is a tough out. Rikishi knocked Nunes out, and we just saw what Sugar Nunes did to Rikishi. So, yeah, I'm staying away from that. If you want to bet on it, that's on you. Maybe you do your methodology, bet on odds. But we're about 30 minutes in. We covered Ghana. Argentina, if we want, we could talk about Nonito Donaire. You guys know who I'm going with that? I used to bet on cricket. Fernandez was supposed to fight Dalton Smith. Yeah, so Nonito Donaire is fighting this weekend, 42 years old, hasn't fought in 2 years. He looks slow and sluggish the last time we saw him fight. And like I said on my last live stream, at one time, Nonito Donaire was one of my favorite fighters to watch live. Whenever Donaire would have a fight, I would tune in. He's had, he's a Hall of Fame, future Hall of Famer, 4-weight world champion. I talked about it last time. His left hook, one of my favorite left hooks. And it's just that at this stage in the game, me too, I'm taking Campos. Campos is 28. I think I'm very confident in that bet, and the money is good. And it's not just because of the money. I like Campos's speed. Cambosus could be live. I don't think so. No. Richardson Hitchens wins a lot of rounds against George. Look, I like George, and I like Jim. Did you guys watch the press conference today? If you've been following my channel, I would have told you about Jim Cambosus. I could say I talk to Jim on the phone every now and then. He's helped me out in the past in terms of content. Jim is George's dad, and I'll be the first to say that I feel he's one of the most underrated managers in the game of boxing. How he's managed George Cambosus' career has been nothing short of exceptional. Jim has got him big fight after big fight after big fight based off of that Teo performance. So, do I want to see George beat Hitchens? Yes. I'll be cheering for George Cambosus. Am I betting on George? I'm not. I'm betting on Hitchens. And that's where I come from with my channel. I'm never going to tell you guys an emotional pick. I tell you the best advice. Maybe I should make t-shirts. My dad's advice to me as a kid, Johnny, bet with your wallet, not with your heart. Maybe I'll do t-shirts and sell them as merch. What channel you subscribe to? Watch all the fights on. So, Brett, DAZN, Campos by decision. Yep. I got Andre on the money line. Look like a WWE skit the way. But, Jim Cambosus is an OG Greek immigrant from Australia. Jim will throw hands. Jim will throw hands, man. He will. Donaire fights W interim banner. Yep. They did. And that's the thing. Great point on that. And I talked about this in my video. Nonito Donaire, if Donaire wins, he has to fight Antonio Vargas? Come on, man. I think it would be I think it's in Donaire's best interest to lose this fight, actually. That presser was good. Yeah. I'm taking Gorsch, Antonio. I think Gorsch beats him. Gorsch beats Alate. Size difference. That fight's at 122. Gorsch, has fought in and around 22 and 26. And Alate is a 115 guy. Hitchens, if his odds keep going down. I got Hitchens. Yeah, so I'm taking some method of victories, guys. So I'm taking Andy Cruz by stoppage. Andy Cruz by stoppage. And if they're going to let me, this Hitchens by decision. I think so. That's gonna be the case. Nakajima. Yeah, we talked about it, lights out. Nakajima's going to win that fight. I'm just waiting to see if I could get odds on the stoppage. Yeah, and Alate, these are going to be exciting fights if you guys could watch that Ghana card. Ghana boxing, super exciting. The odds keep coming down because the money keeps coming in. Do I have Campos? And that right now, Ola, I have Campos on. Campos, the odds on the money line are so good, you could add that to a parlay and juice it up. Why risk? If you want to risk the decision, which bumps the odds, put that on its own ticket. Maybe take Campos by decision and Cruz by stoppage and see what that pays. But whenever the odds on a dog that I really feel is a live dog like Campos, I don't even, on the parlay, I don't even mess with the decision. I don't think George wins. I think he loses split decision. I could see it happening. I'm just siding with, I really like Gorsch against Alate. Like I said, they both have power. One has power at 122 pounds. One has shown power at 125 pounds. And the other guy has power at 115. This fight's at 122. So you got to think about rehydration. And yeah, I really like, the size cancels each other out in terms of reach. One's 5'4", one's 5'3". Based on where their power is in their careers, I'm always going to side with the bigger guy who has power, especially when he's not dropping a weight class. The smaller guy's coming up. That's my reasoning. Could I be wrong? Yes. Is it a close fight? Yes. That's why the odds are close. So, I'm not a mind reader, but just so you guys know, the longer you stay on my channel, the reasoning behind things are going to come down to me studying the fighters, knowing the fighters, and then seeing what they look like in past fights. And whenever you see guys coming up or coming down, you got to take that in consideration, guys. And I have to admit right now, because everybody's been asking me, Canelo versus Bud, obviously I'm a Bud Crawford fan, but I was, I don't know if we'll see what happens. Going up to 168 is the narrative. Don't get it twisted. It's not like that seeing them at a press conference and Bud's filled out. The narrative is, Bud fought once at 54. Bud won his first world title at 35 years ago. He fought Izzy at 54, beat EJ at 47. I was cheering for EJ, by the way, and I put money on Bud. So if you're on my channel back then in 2023, it seems like it was 10 years ago. I told you guys this. I said that I was cheering. My heart was with EJ. I wanted EJ to win that fight, man. But I bet and picked for Crawford to win, and I was right. Based on that style. And based on Errol Spence's sort of, marauding, southpaw, jab-heavy, walk-you-down style, I was like, Bud is slick for that, and Bud's counters are going to be there. And, it just made me look good. And I remember after that fight, I got a lot of EJ fans who stayed, and a lot of Bud fans came to my channel. And now there's new fans who think I've always been a Bud fan, but it was like, nah, man. Like, I'm a fan of boxing. So I'm actually excited to break that fight down. Hitchens looked terrible against Lemos. And to me, Lemos is a carbon copy of Cruz without the chin. What's up, meme? David? Yep. Guys, wherever you are, if you're tuning in right now, could you like this video? We keep fluctuating from 40 to 50 to 60 people. That's all I ask from you guys. Just like the video. It helps out with the channel's reach. It also helps out when we leave the live stream. This video will be sent to more people who haven't subscribed. Also, guys, maybe you watch my content, you didn't know that you're not subscribed. Could you do that? And then I go live every day. Fight day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. I go live every day. If you need to be notified, hit the bell. There's a bell icon. I only know about this bell icon because I heard one of the other YouTubers talk about it. I guess if you hit this bell, you'll be notified when something comes out. So that's cool. People love George. Still loves this fight. Yeah, it's a good fight. Hitchens don't beat Cambosus. I'm done betting on boxing. David. Man, Caleb Plant losing to Resendez was wild. Josh Taylor losing was wild. I know. Sometimes, and sometimes if you don't like the matchup, don't bet on it. Because if you're not comfortable with Hitchens beating George, don't bet on it. And especially if you're doing the money line. It's $1.10. What is the juice? And Bricks, for some reason, we don't get this OTX card. I don't get the odds on OTX. I don't even see these fights. What is OTX is like this is gonna sound, this will be my most casual comment. And I'm not a boxing casual, but I thought OTX was influencer boxing. I didn't know. We don't get it. It doesn't get marketed here in Sydney. It's not on my boxing odds, OTX. And I was under the impression that I thought OTX was like YouTubers boxing. I didn't know they were legit sanctioned body fights. But the thing is, if I lose money, I cash out. Yeah, David. Yeah, we all have our systems. So I know there's a lot of people. We'll move past Nonito Donaire and Campos. I know, that's one of the dogs I'm taking. And I think there's one more. I think that might be it. Brandon Pizarro Mercado. That's a 50-50 fight. The Misfits OTX is pro boxing. Yeah, I don't even know what Misfits is. I don't even know what that is. It's not marketed. I'm saying I'd cash out if Johnny, who you got for Norman Jr.? I got Brian Norman Jr. winning that fight. Sasaki could crack. Sasaki's going to be there to get hit. Sasaki at a world-class level, watching both guys' careers. I've seen Sasaki's last two fights. I've watched Brian Norman Jr. come up. I think Brian Norman Jr., especially with Boots leaving, I think he could make some damage at 47. I like the thing I like the most about Brian Norman Jr. is his mind, his attitude. He has his mind for the game. He's a guy who will, go look for sparring partners, want to get better. Even the defensive, he did get clipped a bit in his last fight, but he won by stoppage. And breaking his last fight down, we talked about, I want to see Brian Norman Jr. be a little bit more defensively sound, especially when you're exchanging. And he did that. So I'm seeing Norman Jr. leveling up with each fight. I like him. By the way, if you guys want to know how to watch Gorsch fight, DAZN. Yeah, so down here in Australia, DAZN is the main one we have to. So I pay for the subscription. And, I see the Africa card. And like, this is going to sound crazy, guys. We weren't able to see the Keyshawn Davis card last weekend. I couldn't even pay for it. It wasn't even offered. So that's why I get cut. It's kind of frustrating sometimes. What about Hani Barcelos versus Cody Garbrandt by stoppage? I talked about that. And I talked about this fight on the last stream. You know, when we talk about Cody Garbrandt, you know, his hand speed world class. He lost a lot of years in the gym boxing in Cleveland, Ohio. He was a good junior amateur boxer, and he was known for sparring bigger dudes. And he's known for wanting adult. We've seen him. We've seen him get starched. We've seen him knock people out. He was a former world champion, and doesn't cut a lot of weight. Hani Barcelos is a mean guy. It's going to be a fun firefight. It's another fight I'd stay away from. If anything, I would bet that the fight doesn't go the distance. Does anyone think George could beat Matias? Well, Matias is fighting Alberto Puello, so the question I would be asking, does anybody think Subriel Matias could beat Alberto Puello? Because that's the fight. Matias is getting another shot at becoming a world champion. I don't think he wins that fight. Brett, we get last year in Australia. I know. Brett, I was insane last weekend texting people trying to do a VPN, which I don't even know about. If you're George Cambosus' coach, what advice would you give him this weekend of the gameplay? Red Leader. Great question, Red. These are questions I like to answer because I am a coach, but I'm not George's coach. The game plan for George, you know, with Richardson Hitchens is you have to, he initially has to answer the jab. And this is why sometimes you might hear commentators say that said fighter has a few questions that need to be answered. The first one, how are you going to answer, and if anything, you know, get past Hitchens' jab? You know, he is quick. The thing George does have, he has good hand speed. Doesn't have one-punch knockout power. He fights off the back foot. So, and he fights good he's comfortable fighting off the back foot. He's comfortable trading off the back foot. He's not really going to be a guy who, you know, when you watch how he fights, he's not going to press the action, but when the action comes to him, he's going to then start throwing. So, firstly, you know, answer the jab, get inside, work the body, and he has to win rounds. And, you know, scoring points, score to the body, go up top, exit, force him to come, answer the jab, slip the jab. So it's going to be a lot of getting the head off the midline, not getting caught, not letting Hitchens fight his fight as well. Hitchens is a guy who's going to want to fight at his pace, going to want to fight at his tempo, going to want to be rhythmic with that jab, and then put George in bad positions, cut angles, and he wants to score points as well. So with the added vitriol on this fight, actually, I think that might, you know, you always want to ask yourself if a fighter is in the other guy's head. And then you have to ask, what fighter loses more if they're too aggressive? And initially you would think, let's say both guys go in the middle and they're both really aggressive and they start exchanging with each other. Who is it a bigger risk of getting hurt? I'd have to say George is a bigger risk of getting hurt. I do, just based off of, you know, the 6-inch reach disadvantage. Hitchens, 74-inch reach, George, 68. Hitchens is going to be a little bit taller. He's wider up top. He's going to put, you know, I don't know what the rehydration is going to be, but he's a naturally bigger dude. But George has speed, and he's crafty in there. And the thing everybody loves about George is he doesn't duck smoke. He's gonna want to fight you. And I think this is why I think this is a great opportunity for Hitchens to have a viral moment. And I do. I think, you know, he's already a champion at 40. He's 27 years old. He hasn't had that viral moment yet. Nobody's shared his fights. Is he capable of that? I think Cambosus is a great opportunity for Hitchens to show that he is capable of that. We know he has a chip on his shoulder, and I'm cheering for George, but I think that Hitchens could stop him. I do. Am I going to bet on that? I don't know. I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to think about it. I think George is actually tailor-made for Hitchens to stop him. If Hitchens is who he thinks he is, and you know, and then you have to ask yourself, if Hitchens goes about and just wins every round, maybe, you know, and he gives away a couple rounds, he's still a champion. But then when you ask yourself, do you want to see him fight? Could he beat the other guys? Could he beat Puello? Could he beat Gary Antoine Russell? Could he beat Teo? If he just goes in and just win rounds. He has to know, people are in his ear, he wants that lifestyle. You could tell. He wants to be like Tank. He wants to have the cameras on him. All right, fight like it. Stay in the middle, fight like it. Let me see your chin. I don't even know does he have a chin? We'll see. We'll see. In my film study, I think he does too, Mac. I'm cheering for George. My heart's with George. I want George to shock the world. But I'm also expecting Hitchens to look great come fight night. I'm expecting him to put on a performance. He's watching all these guys, and when you look at Hitchens, who he came up with in the amateurs in America, a lot of these guys, even though, he is a world champion, a lot of these guys have gotten more pub. Hitchens don't brawl, he's going to hold. And if he does do that, that's going to play into George's game. The Lemos fight is definitely a blueprint, but I think Hitchens has improved since. Me too. And so leveling up happens in slow stages until you have like a viral moment. It's hard for us to see that fighters are leveling up fight to fight if they're doing it methodically. And Hitchens is doing it methodically. Hitchens beat Liam Perro, and Perro beat the Boogeyman. So, I mean, that's a great victory. We can't undervalue. Everybody talks about the Lemos fight. Everyone talks about the Lemos fight. But, guys, have we ever talked about what Lemos, maybe it was because Richardson Hitchens took a lot away from Lemos and then Keyshawn finished them off. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's never supposed. People just do the boxing math and just go, Richardson looked like this against Lemos. Keyshawn looked like this. So this guy must be worse than this guy. Or you could go about the other route. The guy who lost both fights, how much did he also lose of what he has in the tank against the guy who didn't look so great because he didn't finish him versus the guy when he got stopped? So that's definitely a conversation that needs to be had with that 140-pound champion list as well, which all of us right now, I would put Hitchens at the bottom right now. I would. If there was a tournament between champions right now and we had to rank them, I would go I would put GAR at the top, and then Teo a close second, and then Playo a close third, and then I'd put Hitchens at fourth. But if Hitchens goes in on fight night and starches George and stops him and looks amazing and has his moment, then my list would change, because then we would know what Hitchens is capable of, and then I would like to see Hitchens versus GAR. Or I'd like to see him against any of those champions. But right now, if he goes in and just wins a decision and it looks like an atypical Richardson-Hitchens fight, this is why boxing's so exciting, the storylines. Yeah, GAR is my guy. GAR, mate. As an Aussie, I really hope Hitchens doesn't beat two Aussies back to back. And great point. And what gets lost in all of this is Liam's career, because nobody wanted to fight Subriel. And if you watch, we covered that fight. We broke that fight down. Liam versus, going to Puerto Rico, and no one wanted to fight Matias. Matias was taught, he knew it. He thought that he was going to be able to use his backhand and just beat Paro, but Paro could box. He became a world champion. And we broke down Paro versus Hitchens, and I thought for sure Liam was going to outbox Richardson Hitchens. I thought for sure Liam was, granted it was a split decision, but Hitchens, I thought Hitchens did do enough to beat Liam, and, that's him coming down to Puerto Rico and taking Liam's belt from him. It's a big accomplishment. 27 years old, it's a big accomplishment. No one talks about it. Guys, it's hard to become a world champion in boxing. It is. And sometimes, depending on what stage of a guy's career, we only get to see what they give because, these are tactical business decisions. I know. I agree about Liam. Even when Liam, went to my hometown, near where I'm from, Cleveland, Ohio, and he beat Montana Love, the way he did it, he was an underdog that fight. And then, he wasn't getting the pub. He wasn't the A side against Montana. They thought Montana was going to beat Liam. And then when Liam fought Brock Jarvis, same thing. Due to the Jeff Fennick aura down here in Australia, Brock was getting all the pub. It wasn't Liam, and then Liam starched him. And so I think that we kind of forget about Liam a bit, specifically how Richardson beat him. You can't just forget about that. So rather than talking about how he looked against Lemos versus Keyshawn against Lemos, we should talk about what Richardson did to get the belt. What time is the Africa card tomorrow? Go 2 days. So tomorrow, it'll be 2 days from now. So the New York City card will be our Sunday afternoon here in Sydney, and which will be a little bit earlier for the Perth boys. Hey, Johnny, is this the time for parlay? I've already done it. Tomas, great question. Guys, if you're here waiting for the parlay, I posted it. Was he a slight favorite? All right. Was he supposed to win? I mean, did you gamble on Liam to beat Montana? I did. And that Montana's never really psychologically like got past that. But it goes to show you though what an electric performance could do for a guy's career, both promotional wise and psychologically. Because watching Pero's Instagram and seeing like, you know, you become a world champion and you lose the belt. It's tough to become a champion again. Not just the physical skill set, but overcoming some psychological hurdles. So it's interesting to see. I think Hitchens, you know, I think he's better than people give him credit for. Liam put Montana. Yeah, man, come on. That was in Cleveland. Wasn't that in Cleveland, Ohio? I'm pretty. Maybe I have that wrong. There you go. I bet probably be. There you go. Mankey crazy. Get it. Not everyone did though. What do you think on? I'm not. Davies, don't put. No. Tomas, I don't bet on Davies. Well, you were right. He's talking about. I think you're talking about O'Hara Davies. He's $1.07 this week in Africa. There's certain guys I won't bet on. No offense to them. Just like any gambler, any athlete will have their own superstitions. You know, when I was playing baseball, you know, when you're going from the dugout to take the field, you know, I was either pitching or playing third base. You don't step on the chalk, right? When I'm gambling and betting on fighters, there's certain boxers I don't bet on. He's one of them. and I don't bet on the domestic heavyweights either. Especially American domestic heavyweights, I ain't betting on them. Would love to see Stevie Spark. He retired, though. Yeah, Stevie Spark had some good performances. He hung them up. You know, and he would go multiple weight divisions, too. He's a domestic level. Oh, yeah, Spark beat Montana Love. I forgot about that. Good call, Skeezy. Yeah, so Stevie Spark beat Montana Love. Forgot about that. He did that overseas. That was a good win for him. He's coming off 2 knockouts. Yeah, I'm staying away from that. I kind of like some of the rules I have with betting is like it's hard for me to put money on domestic level heavyweights. You know, a guy I'm high black to Chicago fights at 140. A deaf guy from Chicago. Who are you talking about? I mean, it wouldn't be hard for us to Google. Do you guys? Let me go over the first fights, guys. So tomorrow, Africa starts tomorrow. By the way. Actually, Africa starts 3 a.m. my time in Sydney, so 14 hours from now, the Africa card starts. So when I wake up in the morning tomorrow at 5, I have to set an alarm to watch Daniel Gorsch fight Alate. All right, so I'll at least know if my parlay is alive. Isn't the guy MJ just fought deaf? I don't know. Maybe. But I know... So, yeah, somebody asked about the time. Julius Smith, he's deaf. He beat Ergashev. There you go. Okay, where are we at? You guys were asking about... Let me do a lock real quick with the UFC. Like I told you in the earlier live stream, you know, Cameron Smotherman, even though I'm going to transition to the card this weekend real quick, UFC. Ricky Simone was supposed to fight Air Jordan, but Cameron Smotherman, Adrian Yanez, his sparring partner out of Texas, is stepping up on late replacement. Gotta love Cameron Smotherman. Gotta love his boxing. He's always up for a fight. Where he lacks in terms of his toolbox is grappling and wrestling. And unfortunate for him, that's exactly Ricky Simone's wheelhouse. And Ricky Simone's, you know, right at the cusp, like a perennial contender. Ricky Simone has some really, really good wins. I think, you know, that's a very safe bet to take Ricky Simone there. Wellmaker's going to knock out he's fighting Chris Montigno. Montigno went viral for getting beat up for three or five rounds against Sugar Sean O'Malley a few years ago. He's the guy with the green hair, got beat up and went viral because he didn't get stopped. And then he lost another fight, and then he got cut from the UFC, and he's back. I guess they have a hard time finding Wellmaker fights. He's a really, really athletic guy. If you could get him by stoppage, I think that. Why did you pick Gorsch? I picked Gorsch because of the weight separation. I picked Gorsch because when you look at their careers, both guys have power in their hands. Would you call both guys knockout artists when you look at their knockout to win ratio? Both guys stop a lot of their opponents. It's just that one goes about their business stopping their opponents at 122 and 125 pounds versus the other guy going about his business at 115 pounds. I mean, he weighed in his last fight, Alate, at 114 and a half pounds, and Gorsch weighed in his last fight, 125 and a half pounds. The fight is taking place at 122. So, you know, even if you're going to do the power versus power canceling each other out, then once you get the physical 5'4", 5'3", the reaches are similar. What are you left with? You're left with, okay, the naturally bigger guy. Who's the guy coming up 2 weight classes versus the guy who's fighting his natural weight? I'm always going to side with the guy fighting his natural weight. That's my reasoning. Will I be right? Time will tell. Guys, wherever you are, like this video. We're approaching an hour. If you have any more questions specifically about fights that we covered all week, we got about 14 hours before our parlay is live. The Ghana card is on DAZN, so wherever you are in the world, you could stream that on DAZN. Aussies, I know there's a few boys from Perth, a couple other Aussies on the stream. By tomorrow morning, we'll know if we're still live, if you're listening or riding my bets. So somebody asked me again, we already covered that fight. I'm staying away from the Fernandez fight, guys. I'm staying away from that fight. And then Inoue against MJ. Fun fight. Fun fight. It's hard. I mean, there's certain guys you win money on. You watch their careers. There's no way I'm betting against Inoue. Even though I hit a 15-1 when he fought Cardenas because I took a prop bet and I posted the receipts. Him getting knocked down. So Inoue getting dropped was a 15-1 prop bet, and I hit that. Put 100 on it to win 1,500 in that, and it happened. I was going crazy. But then in my prediction video on a separate bet, obviously I picked Inoue to win. So I'm like, dude, get up. And he got up. And then obviously we know how that fight ended. But one of my buddies in Ohio spent some camps with Ramon Cardenas, and he was like, dude, Cardenas could crack. And then when you look at what happened against Luis Nery and the willingness Naoya has to throw bombs, and then when you saw Cardenas catch him after the fight, Cardenas said he drilled that. He said he knew that Inoue, gets caught dropping his, I think it was the left hook, dropping his backhand during exchanges. And so that makes it even more exciting when you see a guy like Ramon Cardenas get knocked out, but his stock elevated. I love stories like that. You know what I'm saying? So, that's why we love boxing. You could get knocked out and get your stock elevated, or you could win a boring points decision and stock drop. So it's kind of like we'll see what Hitchens does. I expect Hitchens stock to rise. I mean, somebody has to I know it's a different division, but the horrible thing that happened in Norfolk last weekend with Keyshawn, watching a kid who had everything right here and just totally self-sabotage himself. American boxing is waiting for another young guy to replace him. He's 27 years old, Richardson Hitchens. He knocks George out. I mean, he'll be strutting around New York City for a while. We'll see what happens. There's some fun fights on the New York City card. There's a kid who's 42 years old who spent 10 years in prison. I don't know if you guys, and he's a favorite, but he's a fun fighter to watch. They call him the King of New York, and he's on that card. There's some fun matchups on that card. He looks better than Delgado, but we'll see. Yeah, and let me give you one more UFC pick real quick. Yeah, Rose versus Maverick. So Rose Namajunas fighting Miranda Maverick. Rose is $1.41. I like her. If you're picking UFC, I think she's going to be too world class for Miranda Maverick. I think Maverick's game plan is a little bit too one-dimensional, even though she has the youth. And Michael Chiesa will be too much for Court McGee. Their grappling and wrestling will cancel each other out. Chiesa's real long and real awkward. I think he's going to submit Court McGee, even though Court McGee's tough as nails. And then Paul Craig, if you're looking for an upset. Paul Craig, 420. We know what Paul Craig has done in his past. He'll pull guard and get you in a fucking rear naked. And he could get the upset. He's a big underdog. Stylistically, we'll know what Craig is going to want to do against Rodolfo. And I might sprinkle a little on Craig on the underdog. But we'll see. I took Pizarro. I stayed away from that fight. Let's see what those odds are real quick. Pizarro versus Delgado. Batista versus Delgado. If Delgado should be able to beat Batista, guys. And then see Pizarro versus Mercado. Why are you taking Pizarro there? I think, it's a 50-50 fight. Amir Khan's coach when Breedis knocked him out. I mean, Mercado, no one's picking Mercado to beat Pizarro here? Pablo Valdez is the guy I was talking about. Thoughts on this parlay? Dev, Zaquin, Maka putting together. Yeah, Zaquin Moses, huge favorite. He's going to win. Nishant Dev's going to win that fight. So his boxing skills. Okay. Give me 1 second real quick on that. I want to add something to the Pritzara fight. We see Ashton Silverson was supposed to fight Schofield. Yeah, give me 1 sec. I know Floyd's fighting Tevin Farmer. So it's this OTX card again. No, we're not. I'm not even seeing odds here. So they're fighting at 130. Where's Mercado? We last saw him fight Machuca. I mean, his resume's all right. Where's Mercado? Super lightweight, 30. He's coming off a UD and a draw he drew against Rubalcava. I mean, that's a decent fight. He won a decision, and he lost to being Slarnov. I just won money on that guy. I don't know. I don't like that fight. You think Pizarro versus Mercado is going over 8.5? I could see it going over 8.5. If anything, it's a 50-50. It's a 50-50 fight. I guess it'll come down to if you like Pizarro due to his technical acumen and his skill set, but throwing a 50-50 fight on the 9-leg parlay. The riskiest fight on that is obviously taking Castro. I don't want to say that's a lock, but I actually feel more comfortable taking Castro at a $3.30 than taking either Mercado or Pizarro at $197 either way. So that's just how I feel. I just think Nonito Donaire at 42 years old, obviously so much tread has gone on those tires. Comp looked really good. Yeah, coaching matters at that level. We'll see. If Skizzy or the other from Perth is still on here, does Bet365, or if any Aussies are on here, does Bet365 offer the OTX fights on our sportsbook? Because I know Sportsbet, my app down in Sydney I use, I've never been able to bet on OTX. My book isn't even giving that Donaire fight. Okay, that's wild. Maybe tomorrow. Because last week, just for me watching Gary on 3D and listening to him throughout the week, his book was only giving him a handful of fights, and then my Saturday morning, your Friday, the book opened up. So maybe it's going to be one of those things, because it's pretty shocking that you're not going to be able to bet on the Donaire fight. It is a title eliminator. I mean, four-time, 4-weight champion, future Hall of Famer. You think that you'd be able to bet on that? And Campos, I mean, he fought Sonny Edwards. He looked good against Sonny Edwards. Took him the distance. We know Sonny at his best. Sonny's a good fighter. Sportsbet. Makey, I don't see it. Offers OTA. So I have the app open right now. I don't have... Okay, my bad. Mankey. Okay. I guess you're right. See? I learned more from you guys than you guys learned from me. You're right. It does have those those fights. I just didn't see it. Man, I watched Ashton Sill fight once, and it was the one fight he lost. I don't know. I know a lot of people are high on him. And then a lot of people are high on Floyd Schofield too. How much of that Floyd Schofield hype is from the promotions though, man? I think it's a bad matchup, him versus Tevin. I don't even think they're in the same class. And this is controversial. And Tevin's, I think you guys said Tevin on your books are the underdog. Floyd Schofield, I mean, I don't see it. I mean, on paper, I see why he has fans. I just don't see him being world class. I'm sorry. I don't see him. I think Tevin Farmer handles him. I bet on where the heavy favorite got the brakes beat off of him. That's Kyle. And I think maybe this is why I stay away. Yeah, and GOAT. Maybe this is why I don't bet on those fights. I think I watched the OTX card once, and I'm like, I felt like it was influencer boxing. Silva actually posted he has a fight announcement coming on his socials. Okay. I don't know why in my head I thought OTX was influencer boxing. But Yeah, it just seems like certain cards. It's kind of like when the top rank cards come around. There's a lot of money. I win a lot of money on top rank. The Aussie cards, I always do really well in Australia. Farmer and him will go the distance. Yeah, and Tevin Farmer is world class. Tevin Farmer is a few decisions away from having a really, really great record if it went the other way. And, ad nauseum, I talk about Sandro Martin, same sort of guy, different styles, but like Sandro Martin's record, a few really close decisions away, hell, from being a world champion. He was winning a lot of those rounds against Puello. A lot of those, and then like the thing with Tevin is I think his rounds get scored. Where they lose rounds happens in different moments. Sandor Martin will let the last 20 seconds of a round slip away when he looked amazing the first 2.5 minutes. And you watch him like the last, especially against Puello, he gave away the last moments of a round when we know, especially the fight gets in those later rounds, that's what the judges are really looking at. Same with Edward Vasquez and Goat. Those guys are so frustrating for me to watch. I know Sportsbet have more fights, but their boxing odds are really bad. It's who when you say really bad, define really bad. Is it because the risk that I run with my book, Sportsbet, is that a draw ruins my bet, but then again, because it's three-way betting, I get juicier odds. So I kind of just play that risk. One of my clients this morning just said that he is on the board of directors, and I'm like, bro, I've been coaching you for 6 years. How have you never told me this? He's on the board of directors for this betting app called Dabble. Aussies, do you know about Dabble? Grommets, you're the first guy to ever say that worse odds on the books. Everyone else, Grommet, I never even heard, I don't recognize you on the live stream. Welcome. But funny that you say the worse odds. Every time I post the odds, which I always do, everyone says, damn, bro, those odds are amazing. So I don't know if you're just trolling or what. One sport I've won fortune of is Olympic weightlifting. You could gamble on weightlifting? Jesus Christ. Damn, you guys are wild. Yeah, so one of my clients is on the board of directors of Dabble. So after this live, I'm gonna download it. Only comes around every 4 years. You could gamble on weightlifting is insane, dude. That's wild. But the favorite almost always wins. That's like I had a buddy when I lived in Vegas from 2011 to 2013. This guy would gamble on like ping pong and racquetball. Dabble's about it's a new app. All right. Yeah, so I guess a new app. Yes, I'm going to download, see what the odds are. If I ever catch myself gambling on racquetball, I know it's time for me to make an adjustment in my life. No offense to you racquetball gamblers, but my whole methodology comes from research and film study. So the two, like I said, boxing's my wheelhouse. You get all the content here. MMA, I've been winning money on MMA for a decade. It has gotten more tough in recent years due to the parity in MMA. And then weeks 1 through 5 in NCAA college football, I'm making damn killing. And we talked about that. We talked about that earlier. Yeah, I started posting my UFC picks last week. I'll do it again. You can check. Last week I told you guys about, I told you guys Patchy Mix was going to lose. That was a bad matchup for his first UFC fight. And unfortunately, even after the Patchy Mix fight, my guy still doesn't get the pub that he should get. But he's a tough fighter. Yeah, I'll post it to answer your question. Give me 1 second. And I told you about Joshua Van. So I picked Mario Batista on the money line, which was insane, getting plus money on Mario Batista, who's a goddamn dog. And then I took Joshua Van to win by stoppage and went heavy on that little two-leg method of victory. And then I posted that and we hit if you would have tailed that. What I don't do is I don't mix UFC and boxing. I keep them separate. It's like the Seinfeld episode of combining two worlds. You can't combine two worlds. Who you got on Joshua Van versus... Bro, I love that Van put his hand up to fight Brandon Royval. And Raw Dog is one of my favorite fighters. Brandon Royval is one of my favorite fighters. And stylistically, Royval's a guy who likes to scramble. Royval's really crafty on the ground, getting out of sort of bad situations, but he loves the bang. He's going to be there. I'm taking Joshua Van. I'm dead serious. Van's boxing is cleaner. Van is less loopier. Van is straighter with his shots. He's more technical in the pocket. He has that younger energy. Royval's in his early 30s now, maybe. Don't quote me. Maybe late 20s, early 30s. We got Joshua Van, maybe 22, 23. Burmese boxer from Myanmar. Comes from Texas. Got great coaching. one of my favorite fighters. Joshua Van's only loss in the UFC, I think, was to Charles Johnson, who's a great fighter, 5'9", flyweight, insane. And so I think Joshua Van has the goods to become a world champion. I'm high on Joshua Van. You know, I did say the same thing about Adrian Yanez. You know, he's one of my favorite guys. And, you know, Yanez, you know, start off, I think, his first 4 fights, knockouts. And then he kind of got exposed against my guy from, who's the kid who just went to Canada to train with Firas Zahabi, fights out of the cartel. Damn, great boxer. He kind of exposed Yanez a bit. But I think Yanez got back to his winning ways. Rob Font. Rob Font, when Yanez fought Rob Font, it didn't, you know, he got caught early and Font finished him. And Font has looked good as of late, especially since he went from, you know, I think him and Kelvin Cater. I don't know if Cater moved his camp as well, the cartel, up to Firas Zahabi up in Canada, but Font did. About a year ago, 3% of it, 7. Jesus, that's insane. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, guys, any more questions? We're over an hour. Wherever you are in the world, I say thank you for joining me. You're in my little studio here. And like this video, stay tuned to the channel. We got a big weekend of boxing. Let's get these dubs. What I'll do for you right now, after I edit some stuff and get one more video out for you guys, I'll upload my UFC picks. Goat, appreciate you. All the new guys. Australia, welcome to the house. I'm from Sydney. Last 12 years, 60% of my subscribers are from America. I'm waiting for Australia to come on board. So I appreciate you guys. Yeah, Willy Wonka. I already posted one. I'm posting the UFC now. Texas in the house. Love Texas. Love Texas. Everything's bigger there. Stay up. Let's get this money.